This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom.
To achieve progress without strife, to achieve change without hatred.
We cannot expect to make everyone our friend, but we can try to make no one our enemy.
Let us create together a new national spirit of unity and trust.
How can we love our country and not love our countrymen? And loving them, reach out a hand when they fall.
To my friends, and yes, I do mean friends, in the loyal opposition, and yes, I mean loyal, I put out my hand.
I ask the Congress to join with me. But no president, no Congress, no government can undertake this mission alone.
Civility is not a tactic or a sentiment. It is the determined choice of trust over cynicism, of community over chaos.
On this day, we gather because we have chosen hope over fear, unity of purpose over conflict and discord.
It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric. We have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies, they are Americans.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good.
Today, Joe Biden steps into power as this nation's 46th president. For him, this moment has been a long time coming. 35 years in the U.S. Senate, 2 previous White House runs, 2 terms as vice president, and now the president-elect is about to become the president of the United States during a time that's even more tumultuous than when he assumed the vice presidency 12 years ago, dealing, like he did then, with a battered economy, this time because of a raging global pandemic amid an even more bitterly divided nation. Donald Trump will leave the White House today at 8 a.m. for the final time as president. And today at noon, Joe Biden takes the oath of office. Thank you for joining us on this historic day as we also prepare for the swearing in of America's first ever woman vice president, Kamala Harris. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have MSNBC national affairs analyst, executive editor of The Recount, and co-host and executive producer of Showtime's The Circus, John Heilman. Chief White House correspondent for The New York Times, Peter Baker. Member of the New York Times editorial board, Mara Gay. And author, historian, and journalist, Evan Thomas joins us on this very important morning.
Well, it is a morning that every 4 years throughout our lifetime has been a morning where, as Barack Obama said in the inaugural address clip that we showed, that most Americans have chosen hope over fear. That has not always been the case over the past 4 years. And Willie, many of those promises of extended hands or efforts to reach out to the other party have fallen apart quickly. And we've especially seen it time and again over the past 30, 40 years as politics has become more toxic in Washington, D.C. These last 4 years, of course, have been especially toxic. But this is the morning. I can only speak for myself. This is the morning. This is the day when I have, throughout my life, done what Mark Thiessen, a conservative writer for the Washington Post, said he was going to do today, and that is look at the incoming president and say, I may not agree with him on everything. I may not agree with him on most things, but he is my president, and I hope he succeeds. It's what I said when Donald Trump was sworn in. It's what I said when Bill Clinton, probably the president whose election I was the most upset at the time. There's something about seeing a fellow American go up there and swearing an oath to this country where every American, be they conservative or liberal, black or white, Democratic, independent or Republican, has to understand that if the President of the United States does not succeed, then the United States does not succeed. And anyone walking around Washington, D.C., walking around Washington last night or this morning, has in front of them laid bare the effects of the past 4 years of this presidency, an abandoned city. A city that actually is shuttered up as if it is in the middle of a civil war, still buffeted from the violent, grim impact of what happened on January the 6th, and trying to look forward to a better, brighter 4 years ahead for all Americans, not just for Democrats.
Yeah, I share that sentiment exactly, and we said as much the day that President Trump was inaugurated. The success of a president is the success of a country. But today ends, for many people in this country, a very, very dark chapter in our history that began on June 16th, 2015, when Donald Trump descended that escalator at Trump Tower in New York City. Many people thought it was a joke at the time, his candidacy. It ended 2 weeks ago on the steps of those Capitol in a nightmare, in a riot, an attack on the United States Capitol. And this day is extraordinary for the reasons an inauguration is always extraordinary, which is it's the transfer of power, in this case to a new president, Joe Biden. But it's extraordinary also because the sitting president of the United States will not be there. He has decided not to attend. He continues the lie that he won the election. He will be leaving the White House on Marine One at 8 o'clock this morning. He'll travel to Joint Base Andrews in Maryland and fly out to Florida on Air Force one last time. So he will not be at this ceremony. Also, as you said, this will take place on the steps of the Capitol that was attacked 2 weeks ago, the very place where Joe Biden will take the oath of office. Trump supporters were standing and cheering and waving flags, some of them beating police officers and ransacking the Capitol building. It also takes place in a city that, as you said, is locked down. That's essentially on a war footing, and will look out over a mall and down to the reflecting pool that is a representation of where we are, a country that has lost more than 400,000 people to a pandemic that this president has vowed to take more seriously and to make the centerpiece of his administration in a way that the sitting president, who will be president now for just under 6 more hours, did not.
As I prepare to hand power over to a new administration, I want you to know that the movement we started is only just beginning.
In his final hours, President Trump issuing 143 pardons and commutations, among them some notable names.
In hours, Joe Biden will become the 46th president of the United States. He's going to be a president of all Americans, including the 75 million Americans that voted for President Trump, to step up as a leader and represent the whole country.
You're going to have thousands of people coming across the border in a migrant caravan. What message would you want to give to those folks?
There's a commitment to follow our asylum laws, and that means to provide humanitarian relief.
HR departments love sending emails about what a horrible country this is. One man decided he'd had kind of enough of that.
If you're going to call out violence, call it out. But do it year-round. Don't just wait until it's politically convenient.
We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because, 'cause we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It was about
Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, and we start with a Fox News alert. Overnight, President Trump at 1 o'clock in the morning signed the paperwork and handed down 143 pardons and commutations in his final hours as President of the United States.
It comes as the United States prepares for President-elect Biden's inauguration today.
And as always, with the latest, it's Griff Jenkins live on the National Mall with more on our big day ahead. Griff?
Good morning, Will, Ainsley, and Steve. I can tell you as we look ahead to the day, one thing we won't have at the end of it is a debate over the inauguration size. It is certainly going to be a unique one indeed, because instead of thousands of people here on the mall, you see all those flags behind me, and we're just 6 hours away from the swearing in pretty much being done. But of course, before that, we will see President Trump departing the White House one last time. He'll do so around 8 a.m. and head to Mar-a-Lago, but in the wake of his final hours, issuing those 73 pardons and 70 commutations you mentioned, Steve. Let's take a look at who's on that list. Steve Bannon, the president's longtime campaign strategist. Elliot Brody, the former deputy national finance chair of the RNC. Two rappers, Lil Wayne and Bill Capri, more commonly known as Kodak Black. One person tied to the Russia probe, Paul Erickson, and two former members of Congress, Duke Cunningham and Rick Renzi. The president delivering also a taped farewell address reflecting on his presidency and accomplishments, stressing national greatness. Now, as we await Biden's inaugural speech, he has a tall task, uniting a country facing COVID, the racial division, along with economic uncertainty. The theme is America United, and he gave us a little bit of a preview last night. Listen.
To heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal. It's important to do that as a nation.
And of course, the story that has surrounded this inauguration, security still on high alert. I went through hoops to get in here to this position. They are secured down. We also got the news yesterday, 12 National Guard members removed from duty for possible ties to extremist groups, although the commanders say that they are not worried. They intend and are confident of a safe and secure inauguration. So let me show you the one thing that will look very similar, although it will be a much smaller size. I'm going to push, if you can, Yassine, push up there to the stage. This is the West Capitol front where inaugurations take place, and in like times past, traditionally you will have former members of former presidents Obama, Bush, and Clinton, and current and former members of Congress. Now, Vice President Pence will be in attendance, but of course President Trump saying he will not. Chief Justice John Roberts will swear in Biden and Harris, and Lady Gaga will deliver the national anthem right there on that stage. One note we have learned just in the last hour, though, guys, and that is that when President Biden hits the ground running, he intends to issue and sign today at some point some 15 executive orders that will do, among other things, issue a national mask mandate on federal property. It will revoke President Trump's ban on Muslim-majority countries. It will roll back President Trump's new oil and gas leases drilling in the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge, and it will halt that Keystone pipeline. So going to be a very busy day as things get underway here around, I believe, 11 o'clock when we'll first see some movement up here.
All right, Griff, we thank you very much for that live report from Capitol Hill. By the way, we should point out that Will Cain is with us today. Brian is working the primetime shift this week. It's good to have you here, Will.
Thank you so much, Stephen Ainsley.
So you hear that number, the president granted clemency to 143 people, and you think, wow, I had no idea. How many do you think Bill Clinton did his last day?
How many?
140. So they're in the ballpark. It's interesting what Griff said regarding the president did not, as it turns out, pardon himself or anybody in his family, because his attorney, Pat Cipollone, said that you can't really do that without naming a potential crime. And because they haven't been charged with anything, they said that would set a bad precedent. The one thing that the culture world was looking for was a pardon for the star of the Netflix show Tiger King. Joe Exotic got no pardon.
So today is going to be a day full of the inauguration festivities down in Washington, and we're going to also bring you live when the president leaves. He's going to leave at 8:15. Well, he's actually going to have a ceremony at 8:15 at Joint Base Andrews, and then he is going to board Air Force One at 8:35. So we will bring you that live, and then at 11:30 he will land down at Palm Beach International Airport in West Palm. He's going to be living at Mar-a-Lago. There were moving trucks that were seen there on Monday, moving boxes into the house, and I hear that there's a renovation in the private quarters of where the family lives there at Mar-a-Lago. As far as the future of the Republican Party, there are a lot of people that voted, millions of people that voted for President Trump, and this is our last morning show to be able to say that that President Trump is our president, because tomorrow morning it will be Joe Biden. But Dan Quayle made a good point. He said you have to separate the policies of the party and Trump's personality. He said a great number of Republicans support what he has accomplished. There aren't deep divisions in the party on policy, he says. It's more about the personality of Trump. And then Senator Tom Cotton said 74 million Americans ought not to be slandered based on the actions of a couple of thousand who participated in the violent mob at the Capitol.